It's the first edition of Setnin Radio.
Certainly is.
I'm Louis.
I'm Mark.
Okay, let's start off with something that's non-Star Wars.
Yeah. Okay.
Right? Little sci-fi. What do you think of Taking to Serenity?
I think it's a shame. It's a crying shame. Because it's opened on, we were talking about this before, it's opened on, 2,600 screens. And it's not even taken $11 million yet, and it's been out since Friday.
Yeah.
That's taken us up to Monday. So, what is it today? It's the 5th of October today. So, it's a real shame. A real shame because the word of mouth is excellent. So.
Yeah, I mean, it's been very highly promoted in the UK. All the major breakfast shows and premiere, I believe, is tonight as we're recording this.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah, Leicester Square, yeah.
Releases on Friday.
Previews on Thursday.
Can I only hope it's sort of a glitch in the water and that it picks up on some.
Well, I think it will.
Mm-hmm.
Firefly, the series, just did so well on DVD sales. I mean, the CDs at Fox were crazy to cancel that show, which should never have been on Fox. Here's a fact for you. Buffy and Angel are seen as Joss Whedon's two biggest ever TV shows, which clearly they are.
Mm-hmm.
The lowest rated episode of Firefly, I believe, I'm pretty sure I'm right in this, the lowest rated episode of Firefly got more viewers than the highest ever rated episode of Buffy.
Wow.
Which tells you that Firefly was on the wrong network. If Firefly had been on UPN or Warner Brothers, WB or Sci-Fi Channel, which is where it pretty much lives now, it would still be going. But then you could say that about other shows like Space Above and Beyond, and there was some of the good also-rans that should still be going today. So.
Well, I mean, what I find is really incredible is, I mean, I don't mean to insult anybody by this, but I mean, people seem to have this anti-sci-fi thing at the moment. We've got the cancellation of Enterprise.
Crazy.
Which was, in its own way, an absolute pain in the butt. The only sci-fi that actually is doing any good at the moment is Galactica. Seems to be Galactica. You take the word straight out of my mouth. But
you've heard, and this was a rumour I heard at the Reunion 3 convention, that apparently in the States now, I could be wrong because I've not been downloading it, so I don't entirely know what's going on, but Ron Moore has started a story arc. He started doing complicated story arcs with Galactica. Mm-hmm. And American audiences tend to veer away from that. That's why Andromeda lasted so long, because it was standalone episodes. Whereas when they get multi-story arcs like X-Files, people got lost with it. B5, people got lost with it. They're doing it with Galactica. And apparently, from what one of the guests had said, and I forget which one it was, the ratings has just gone, bump. So they don't even know whether they're going to get a season 3 yet. They're hopeful. I hope they do.
Yeah, surely. I mean, without being over the top on it, I mean, I've seen up to Pegasus.
With Admiral Kane.
Yeah. Which so far is, again, brings forth the character of Adama as the sort of character you really want behind you in the situation. He basically kicks butt. But there's no complication in the storylines.
No.
It's just following the same story. The humans are heading to Earth, and it's how they get there. Which they did in the original series. Okay, there were some standalone stories as well, but and there were some really awful ones, such as The Return of Starbuck. I mean,
oh God,
Series 2, Episode 10 of the original Battlestar.
There you go.
Maybe 11, or maybe 11. Yeah, I can't remember. Maybe it's 10 or 11. I can't remember. Somebody will correct me on that one. But when you compare the acting, the music, the special effects in something like Battlestar Galactica, to even something like Andromeda, with all due respect to Mr. Sorbo, Battlestar kicks ass.
Oh,
Andromeda was a bit of fun, okay. Battlestar kicks ass. Which brings me round, strangely enough, in a very circular way, to the new Star Wars.
Yes.
Now, we know it's not going to hit the cinema, at least the screens, until at least 2007.
At least. The two shows are going to be kicking off, which everybody who listens to this is going to know about. There's the CG, Singapore-made, I believe, animated Clone Wars series, which I don't know what network it's going to be shown on. I would imagine it will be shown on Cartoon Network, but they're not using Tartakovsky, which they use for the Clone Wars micro-series, which I think is a shame because he's a genius.
Yeah.
And from my personal point of view, purely my personal point of view, and we've said this before, I can't see the point in doing a Clone Wars animated series because we've covered that ground in novels, in comics, in books, in the Clone Wars micro-series. It's been alluded to in the films. We've waited for 30 years nearly for the Clone Wars. They were mentioned in Star Wars. Ben mentioned them in his hut when he was telling Luke about, his heritage. So the Clone Wars have been talked about for all that time.
Yeah.
And yet, in many respects, now that Revenge of the Sith is out, I feel like God, it's like knowing the result of a football match and then watching the game. You know, I don't feel like I need to know anything else about the Clone Wars, particularly. And I'm sure, we write fiction on Lightsaber, and I did a whole bunch at the start of the year, because before Episode 3 came out, before Sith came out, purely I wanted to write Clone Wars stories, because one, I wanted to get into that frame of mind for that era, and of course it was the Natami stuff that we'd both done way back.
Yeah.
And also, you know, it's nice to tell your own stories in that battle era, because it's a broad canvas and it covered the galaxy, and you pretty much know you could write a story as long as you've not got Yoda or Mace Windu or some big character diving in, that you're not going to step on anyone's toes.
Yeah. I mean, I think if they're going to do it, they're going to have to do it very cleverly. It's going to have to be the untold stories. It's going to be the things about the little characters that make the difference. You know, I think that's the only way they're going to get away with it. I mean, I can't see any big stuff happening there.
But you say that, but thinking about it, and I know what you're saying, I think what you've just said is going to be what's going to be happening in the live-action series, because with the CG series, you can get a voice actor to play Anakin or play Ben or whoever, and they can get away with using all the main characters, whereas with the live-action show, where rumours are starting to kick on now, and you've got a very cool rumour about Nathan Fillion, haven't you? Lucas has said, he's not going to use the main characters, he's not going to be the big guys, but we already know, I mean, fandom's going to go nuts if you don't have at least one scene with the, you know, you're telling me they're not going to be able to get Ian McDiarmid to do a couple of scenes a season? Of course they are. I wouldn't be at all surprised. No, I'm lying. If it happens, I will be surprised. But as I'm saying it now, I wouldn't even be surprised if they did a couple of episodes with Ewan McGregor. You know, if that guy's going to go riding around the back of Beyond on his motorbike, I'm sure he'll do a couple of Star Wars episodes. He doesn't hate it that much. In fact, I got the impression that he actually really enjoyed doing the trilogy.
From what I heard, he had a great deal of fun.
Yeah, and he enjoyed Sith, definitely.
Absolutely.
So that wouldn't be...
He enjoyed the physicality of it, actually. You reckon there was more physicality in that than there was in the previous two?
And Hayden, he got such a buzz out of being in that suit. If they need Darth Vader, it will be Hayden Christensen playing Darth Vader, and it damn well should be as well. Good on him. I think he did a good job in Sith. I think he did a good job in Clones, looking back at it.
Yeah. Yeah, the only disappointing thing for me in the whole of that movie was this scene where Darth Vader gets out, breaks the restraints, gets out,
Sith, yeah.
And just a no, and you think, well, that could have been done quite a lot better than that. I had the impression the whole place to get ripped apart.
I did. I mean, from reading the book, although we've had this, and this is a premiere episode of Setnin Radio, but when we read the book, and Matthew Stover, I think that's the best movie novelisation I've ever read. I'd put that book in my top 10 books I've ever read. Not because of the story, because of the way the guy wrote the book. It's a fantastic read. It's just a great read. And I love the way he's done it. And I mean, in fact, I did a story on the website. I forget what was the title. Oh, Shay. That was it. That I completely ripped off his style. I pretty much went back and read the book again just so I could get my head around the style again, because I wanted to do this sort of 6-pager in that style, and I was really pleased with it. Not just because it was quite a decent story, but I managed to ape his style. You know, it's such a good style. But the point being is, in that book, you've got all the internalised thoughts. You knew what Anakin was thinking. You can't get that across in the film.
Yeah.
And I personally didn't have a problem with that scene. It was like Lucas said, you know, he's never walked on those legs before. He's a paraplegic. He's got no arms and no legs. So, you know, he is going to clank around like Frankenstein. I didn't have a problem with that. I did, though, get the impression that, you know, when he freaks out and, you know, everything starts exploding and stuff, I did get the impression that the whole room would cave in. But I suppose that might have been overkill. It might, because the whole point is that Vader, after the amputations and Vader in the suit, would last about 30 seconds fighting Anakin Skywalker before he had the dip in the lava. The only reason Anakin lost to Ben was, one, Ben was a wily combatant. Ben knew Anakin better than Anakin knew himself, certainly in regards to his fighting. And Anakin got angry, and, you know, it just made him sloppy. He was overconfident. Yeah. You know, whereas he was the one that was thinking Ben was overconfident.
Oh, you mean Anakin lost to Ben, yeah.
That's right.
Yeah. I mean, and again, you can see that if you look further on back to, you know, A New Hope.
Yeah. Or forward, as the case may be.
Yes,
yeah.
depending on the timeline. But if you see now what's happened. I mean, you've got Ben Kenobi, who, in many respects, I think is still a friend of Anakin Skywalker, and doesn't only sacrifice himself for the child, but sacrifices himself for the father as well.
Oh yeah, you could definitely say that
in that respect. If you know what I mean.
That's blog worthy now. You should be putting that on the hyperspace.
I would do. I'm not a member at the moment, so I will be. Right.
But that is a good point actually, because I've mentioned this before. The fact that Ben knew he was of more use to the cause, the Jedi cause, inverted commas, dead, intangible, incorruptible, beyond the reaches of the Sith,
that's right,
as a Force spirit, to persuade and guide Luke, than he was alive. The ironic thing, and I've mentioned this on the blog today actually, when Lucas wrote those 6 movies, because we can look back at it now and say the 6 movies, it was always a work in progress. Even though the prequels, he'd sketched out ideas for what he was going to write, there's only, I can't remember the exact numbers, it's 20% of it made it into Phantom, 20% made it into Clones, 60% made it into Sith. That's still 40% of the film was just made up on the fly.
That's right.
80% of the other 2. When he wrote Star Wars, he didn't know the exact details of the prequels. He had an idea. He didn't know Luke and Leia were brother and sister. He didn't know Darth Vader was his father. I noticed something. I was reading the opening 2 pages of the novel, The Journal of the Whills. It's all we've got printed of The Journal of the Whills. But in there, it mentions the Emperor. This is just an example of Lucas's work in progress. It mentions the Emperor. It says, the Emperor gained power. He's a wily politician. He gained power. And then he locked himself away, which is what we know he does, because he pretty much does. He locks himself away in Coruscant and sends Vader out to do his dirty work, because he doesn't want Vader anywhere near him, because he's the chosen one, and he knows that part of the prophecy is that he's going to destroy the Sith.
Yeah. So, and I think even the Emperor manipulates the situation with Anakin and Kenobi, so that in that respect, Anakin becomes Vader. He knows it's going to happen, because it's the only way he can get control of him. It's the only way he can make sure he's not as powerful as he was.
Now, I fear we're going off on tangents here, and people are going to listen to this and think, we never finished this point, but what the hell? That's the whole thing about Star Wars. I think that when Palpatine fought Yoda, and certainly when he fought Mace, when Mace took on Palpatine, I think Mace, swordsman to swordsman, defeated Palpatine, right?
Yeah.
He defeated him. Mace Windu, as a swordsman, defeated Palpatine. But by the same token, it was to Palpatine's advantage that when Anakin walks in the room, there's Mace with his sword at his throat, threatening to kill him. That played completely into Palpatine's hands, and Mace didn't see that. He didn't know that Anakin had got all these decisions going on. He didn't trust him. He didn't know the decision process. But by the same token, even if Anakin hadn't have walked in and Mace was going to kill him, he was never going to kill him, because Palpatine always had the power to snuff him out, which he did. Yeah. It's just the fact that it was made easier by Anakin's actions, and Anakin's actions tipped Anakin over completely. Well, no, I don't even think it completely tipped him over to the dark side. I still think I think Anakin and Mace are more alike than they would have liked to have realised, because Mace was doing the whole Batman. Okay, that's expanded universe stuff, but still, he was doing the whole Batman thing. It's mentioned in the novel, because Stover wrote Shatterpoint. And also, obviously, Mace, was the same, and Anakin was the same. He pledges himself to his teachings. But all the way through, he's still thinking, Anakin, you don't hear this in the film, but I think Anakin's thinking, once I've learned everything I can learn off this guy, he's toast. Me and Padme can rule the galaxy. Because all Anakin's bothered about at that point is saving his wife. He just knows she's going to die because he's having these horrible dreams, like he had dreams about his mother, and he's not going to let it happen again.
But in many respects, those dreams are made more true by the situation he gets himself into.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. He makes it happen. His own actions make it happen, which is the tragedy. And when there he is at the end, as Darth Vader on the bridge, folding his arms, looking at the Death Star.
Yeah.
You meet him 40 minutes into episode 1, you meet Anakin, don't you?
Yeah.
Pretty much. And there he is, he's a slave. He joins the Jedi. In many ways, he's in service, it's a type of slavery. He meets Padme and falls in love. He's a slave to his passions and his emotions, so he can't escape Padme. She's got him.
Jesus, you get him.
Pretty deep, isn't
give your consensus of this now. Go on.
Yeah.
Go on then.
Then he ends up as a slave to Palpatine.
Yeah.
As Darth Vader. The only time in the whole 6 movies that Anakin Skywalker is a free man is when he takes off his helmet at the end of Return of the Jedi and says to Luke, basically, you saved me. Tell your sister you were right, sort of thing. That's the only time we ever see Anakin as a free man. In my opinion, anyway.
Yeah, I think you're right in that respect.
I think it's unusual that when Lucas wrote the original trilogy, the old concept of a prophecy of the Chosen One was not Not that I've ever seen it anyway in any books I've got. It wasn't a consideration. It was something he made up for the prequels, and yet if the prophecies played out in Return of the Jedi, and I just love the way he's tied that together.
Yeah, and it does that end up that, let's face it, the father saves the son. He brings the balance back to the Force, getting rid of the Emperor.
And vice versa, really,
which is spooky stuff.
Absolutely.
Right, we're going to leave this for a few minutes for a word from our sponsor, but we'll get back to you very shortly.